If you love chilling mysteries, unsolved cases, and a touch of mom-style humor, Moms and Mysteries is the podcast you've been searching for. Hey guys, I'm Mandy.
And I'm Melissa. Join us every Tuesday for Moms and Mysteries, your gateway to gripping, well-researched true crime stories. Each week, we deep dive into a variety of mind-boggling cases as we shed light on everything from heists to whodunits. We're your go-to podcast for mysteries with a motherly touch. Subscribe now to Moms and Mysteries wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to Still a Part of Us. We've just had an amazing discussion with Joy where she told us about her sweet daughter Lila and how much of a firecracker she was and kind of how she came into this world and how I'm just going to say that birth story was pretty crazy town. Like I am like Lila was very much into making a splash, it sounds like. And so thank you, Joy, for coming back on and having this additional discussion with us.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. So Joy, can you, as just a recap, can you tell us what happened to Lila when she was born at the time of this recording?
Yeah. So she was born on January 28th of 2024. We went in after some bleeding at home, and unfortunately, they were unable to find a heartbeat. The advice from the doctor was kind of come home and they would figure out that process on a later date. But like we talked about, Lila was not ready to wait and unfortunately made her appearance here at my home.
Yeah.
And she got me my first ambulance ride and fortunately had about 24 hours with her after she was born at about 19 weeks.
Yeah. And really, I highly encourage you to listen to Joy's story of Lila's birth because I was sitting there the entire time thinking like, this is crazy. But also just like feeling like this is a lot. And that actually kind of leads me to my first question. So it's been about a year and a half and I'm a little curious how that grief process has looked for you, has looked for your husband, for your family, because you have two little boys that are just little. I mean, they're at the time they were 4 and 1. Mm-hmm. So how has that looked? Maybe kind of tell for yourself, first of all, and then kind of tell me about your family.
Yeah. So for me, it was, how do I jump back into motherhood? Because I have two little ones. And then it was navigating that medical environment of what does this really mean in that realm. And so on the episode, I kind of said I didn't know what to do when I left the hospital. And so that Monday, I left on Monday and I called the hospital to get that appointment that they told me. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that was still there was my anatomy screen. So they asked me if I was calling to reschedule my anatomy screen. And I said, no, I'm scheduling an OB appointment. And they said, oh, the D&E that you were scheduled for. And again, no, which just really made me upset. Like, how do you and I know that it's a person that is just fielding calls. They have no background on what any of that means, and that is kind of what kept happening to me. Of every time that I would be in contact with the medical world, it was like that she was not big enough or old enough to be a human. It felt like. Yeah. And so that is where I struggled with grieving. With my other two live children, like my maternity leave, I just call and I'm on it and there we go.
Yeah.
And then when I went back to the OB, I was like, I mean, what do I do? She was at least she acknowledged, she was like, I call this fetal loss.
Yeah.
Which made me feel better, I guess. And she was like, you went through birth. And so I want you to be off like you went through birth. Okay. So she gave me the the documentation that said she, her recommendations is that I don't go to work, just like a maternity leave. However, your insurance and all of the things through work and all that stuff that doesn't qualify for maternity leave. So it was great that she acknowledged that, but the things I had to work through for them to acknowledge it, again, just kept like beating me down on like her not being a human.
Yeah.
When I physically had a human in my hands.
Exactly.
And so I had, maternity leave, you just kind of
check a
the
box.
Dr. Chicks puts that over there. I had to get all of this documentation and all of this stuff to say I was on medical leave. And it was very challenging to get all of that because it didn't say like because of her, it was because of me.
Yeah.
Maternity leaves is because you had a baby. This was because I wasn't ready to go back to work medically.
Yeah.
And so I struggled really hard with that. And really, I was kind of stuck, very stuck within the first like 2 to 3 weeks. I was like calling and doing the things to get me on leave, but I was not like acknowledging what it was actually doing to me, to my mental health. And I think I remember like being on the couch one day and my husband yelling that my child fell down the stairs. And I had like no recollection of like, I thought I was understanding and stuff, but that's when it kind of hit me of like, okay, I need to do something because I can't mother my children.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where I started kind of grieving a little bit on that.
Yeah, it feels like, I mean, correct me, it just feels like trying to go against the medical system, right? I mean, that's kind of what it feels like. You're trying to take care of yourself because you need that time. You definitely need that time. Is putting a little bit more trauma on you.
Yeah.
Which kind of creates this little buffer before you can grieve Nyla, grieving Lila finally.
Yeah.
Because that is just like, there's anger and at least there would be anger for me against the medical system. I'm like, I need this time and I would love to be able to take this time, and having to fight all the red tape feels like an additional, like kick you when you're down kind of a thing.
Yeah. And it took me, like they gave me 6 weeks, which is what maternity has. But 3 weeks of that was consistent phone calls to my leave, phone calls to my insurance, phone calls to all of this stuff that like was just, it didn't, I was like, should I even be doing this? Should I just go back to work? I mean, it sounds like they're telling me that that's what I should have probably done.
You should be fine. Yeah.
But I have a wonderful boss and a wonderful like team. I'm a manager and I have a team of assistant managers under me. And then my boss, like they were just like, take all the time that you need. We got it. And picked up, I was trying to like text them and call and they're like, no, like you do what you need to do now and don't like worry about coming back. So I think that was, a blessing that like they gave me that. So if they were probably saying, no, like going kind of with what the medical field was kind of, it felt to me saying, that I probably would have just been like, okay, like I'm just going to do that. But I'm glad I didn't. The first 3 weeks, I think, were awful. And then the other 3 weeks, somebody gave me a book. I can't think of what the book is called, but in there, it kind of starts to talk about being stuck and how do you kind of get past that really like awful, like, just, am I ever going to feel anything again? And it stated about parenting your child that you lost. And I had never thought of that. I just thought it was kind of that's it, you know?
Yeah.
And then when I read that, I was like, it gave me purpose. It gave me something that I could hold on to, that I could plan, that I could do something that would make her proud and people would know about her and stuff. And then it just like opened a gate of, okay, now what?
Yeah.
So, you know, looking at podcasts of, you know, others, going to a group, getting a therapist, what other things helped for other people. And I finally kind of got unstuck. Now it wasn't easy. It wasn't like I was like, oh, I'm good. I'm this hurrah, hurrah bereaved parent,
Yeah.
or anything, but it just gave me that purpose that I needed, that I could mother my other children, but I could also mother her.
Yeah.
And that was so helpful for me. Um,
That's awesome. I mentioned that phrase one time to somebody about parenting my son who has died, and they're like, "What are you talking about?" Like, no, you
yeah,
don't you don't understand until you're like, there's a need, right, to nurture,
yeah,
and and now there's no. It feels like there's no way nowhere for my nurturing slash love to go, and so it is a way to do something for my baby and for Lila. So I'm talking. I know you've mentioned a few things that you did to kind of get unstuck. What are some things that you did to parent Lila that you think are some things that others could maybe try if they're trying to nurture, I guess, and parent?
so the biggest thing I think for us, in the hospital, they got the Molly bears.
Oh,
Um, my mom was like, we were getting one of those or whatever. So we got a Lila bear,
yay! And there's a cute Lila bear. Look how cute she is.
and it does weigh the three
The three
ounces.
ounces. Okay.
And I always like held her like this. And so this has been for me very helpful. And one of the things I do with my other children is like for Christmas, we get matching outfits.
Uh-huh.
For pictures, we get matching outfits, and for Mother's Day or whatever. So there's always, now I incorporate her
And
into all of that. And that has been helpful to be able to, we're shopping, and Niall, my oldest one, has to have his opinion on kind of what we do. And, if I forget, he will say, well, we didn't get Lila one for this or whatever. So, whenever we're talking about Halloween right now, and we're going to
oh,
be monster trucks,
aw- awesome.
and she's going to be Sparkle Smash.
Oh, yes.
And it's become that it's like a happy and not
Yes.
a sad.
Yes.
And I think that has allowed me, when we go to pictures, we got to bring Lila there. So I think that is one of the biggest things for me, is to incorporate her so that like there's a physical thing
Yeah.
there, but then you're actually talking about her, and others can, you know, be okay with doing that. Because I think a lot of times they think like it's just this thing that you don't talk about or whatever. And for me, and I think a lot of people in this kind of realm, is that we want to talk
Mhm.
about them, just like we want to talk about our child going to kindergarten.
Yep.
We want to talk about our child and what they might have done or could have done.
Yeah.
And the one person that has always done that is Niall. I mean, just the other day he's in kindergarten, and we were talking about like at his school, they're learning everybody's name. And so we went, during dinner, we went around and we did the name game, and he said, we forgot Lila. And it's just this like normal thing for him.
Yeah.
So if I would ever forget her in a moment or whatever, he's always there to,
Yep.
and it makes me so happy, which I never thought in that moment that I would be able to ever think of her in a, happy moment. I thought that it would always be with sadness.
With sadness. That
Um,
is a you said that so perfectly, because I think people don't realize that I mean, there is always going to be a little bit of tinge of sadness, right? Because
Right.
they're not here.
Right.
But when you parent your child, I feel like you can do things to talk about your baby and to have her associated with joyful things with your family now. And that, yeah, beautiful. You said that so beautifully, like the way your family is doing it. And so I think that's awesome. That is wonderful. And Niall is really a good older brother.
He is. And one of the things that I think about him, like at such an early age, his personality and awareness around death is not sadness. And so I look at that as a positive when some may be like, why are you exposing him to these so young? Some people could have just not done anything. And I mean, when my uncle passed away, he was just like, oh, well, Lila has Uncle, whatever, up in heaven together, and like, it was just like a normal thing for him to talk about that. And I think I look at that as something that will help him in life, of having that relationship with death and being able to talk about that. I don't think a lot of people talk about the marriage stress that comes with that. And as much as I know we are closer now, it did not look like that always.
Right.
And so the first month, 6 months, it was very challenging for our marriage. And I think it led to us not understanding each other. And in the birth episode, I kind of talked about him grieving me.
Yeah.
I didn't know
that was going on.
And so, of course, our grief looks different. I never thought I was dying. I mean, like...
But he was very much like thinking that was maybe happening.
And so I think also the way that I have been brought up with death. My dad was a grave digger and tombstone hole digger, and we were on I was at cemeteries and all that kind of stuff, that we talk a lot about death. And my dad just the other day was like, get my tombstone in, whatever, so you don't have to deal with that. That is kind of what we do in my family. In his family, it's different.
Yes.
And it's not, it's just different. It's not better, worse, whatever, but it's just we've always, before this, it was if somebody died on my side of the family or somebody died on his side of the family or his friend or whatever, it was like his or mine. And we hadn't obviously had
ours.
Yeah. And so we've learned a lot about each other and how we do deal with that. And we've come a long way, but it was probably the most challenging thing we've ever done. And at times I didn't see a clear path of what that looked like in our marriage.
Yeah. It is very challenging because grieving is a very personal thing, but it affects the people closest to you. And so it really, because I was very open about it and very openly weepy, right? Like Lee was dealing with his own trauma too. And he was crying, but not as often. And sometimes I kind of accuse him of just like, aren't you sad anymore? And he's like, oh, I'm sad. Like,
right.
There's plenty. And it's just different expectations. And that took us a long time to, get to a point where you could see eye to eye about something. Gosh, I've never thought about that, of like having an us to figure out how you're going to approach grief versus like you said, he had his side of the family, my side of the family, but this is your first us, like you said.
Yeah. And I think like when it was each other's side, it was like whatever they did is what you did.
Exactly.
So if they had a funeral, if they talked about their loved one at the visitation, then you did that. But if you didn't, it just was
you did
whoever's
that too.
side. Yeah, whoever's side it was took that reign. And I think we had the expectation of us kind of going the way that we're used to and the way that we have done it in the past. And that just wasn't the case.
Yeah.
You know, it was, how do we support one another, but give each other what they need? And that took a long time to figure out.
Yeah. And a lot of patience too, because with your spouse and then also with yourself, because like I always had expectations for like the way it should be, and it never matched up. So.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I never knew, like, this is kind of what I want to do, but I didn't know if he wanted to do it. And then was I not giving him space the way that he needed it to, but I wanted a memorial that he, you know, like those kinds of things were challenging to navigate. And we grew a lot as a couple, and the vows don't lie, in better and in worse. And that is where we were, in the worst.
Is there anything that you felt like did help in that communication to get to that point?
I think that we weren't communicating. And so it took us a long time to have those conversations.
Yes. Okay.
So that was difficult.
And those are uncomfortable, like they're just uncomfortable conversations to have, and just,
Yes, for sure.
having to face, like, how you think and feel about certain things. So that's hard. You talked about some amazing people that showed up in Lila's story, and like your friend Mary and your mom coming down, and honestly your husband's calling your mom to come down, and the funeral home director, and some of the nurses that showed up and were there, and your doctor who did your OBGYN visit afterward. I mean, are there other things that people did for you? Gosh, and your work too. Like, your work sounds awesome. Like, the people that took care of you after that. Are there some things that people did for you additionally that you just want to shout them out, and give others ideas on how we can support other lost parents?
I think the showing up without asking or even expecting, you know, people coming and bringing, you know, just stuff. You know, a lot of times I can think of, you know, a couple from work that would just kind of show up with, you know, food or whatever it was. And there wasn't an ask. And sometimes people feel that that's not something they can do. But we are not going to ask. We're not, and we don't even know what to ask for. And so when my friend came without even knowing, you know, I have a cousin that also has lost a baby, and she was like, I'm coming, you know, just give me a weekend that you're here. And it was really good to talk to her because she understood. And so, you know, I think that expectation of when you say, I'm here if you need anything, sometimes we have to go one step further and kind of give them that need of what we may need.
Yeah, and it's pretty, I love that. I love being able to tell people that, just like, don't even wait, just do a something. If there's a need you usually have on a daily basis, like, you know, you need to do the dishes, or you need to have food, or you would like to have a delicious, tasty soda that, you know, if you just show up with some stuff like that, people are they are gonna be like, wow, I didn't know I needed that, but gosh, I needed that. Like, that was so helpful, because we don't have our wits about us. I think grief brain is a thing, and it is, you just don't know which way is up most times when you're grieving something so devastating. So, yeah.
And I think the acknowledgement, especially in this case when there was other things, like not acknowledging her, that when they would say something or do something with her name, or, you know, those kinds of things made a big difference.
Yeah. when you said the funeral director just kept always, always said Lila's name. I just was like, yes, that makes a huge difference to us. It's like music to our ears. So
Yeah. And at the memorial, so my boss, well, my boss's boss, got me like this little thing that said, now she flies with the butterflies. And like when I got that, I saw a butterfly outside. So all these butterflies are kind of memory of her. But butterflies are kind of the thing that kind of reminds me of Lila. And so now at the memorial, like one of the things, I said was that the ask for people, because they always ask what you can do, I just said, remember her. And so now they like send me a picture of a butterfly or a rainbow or, something that like reminds me of that.
Oh, I love that so much. I mean, because it just, it keeps people like realizing that this is the baby. This was my baby. And I just think that's cool that you asked people to do that. Like, because that is beautiful. And I bet people look out for her. That's cool.
Yeah, they do. And like my husband went on a golf outing for Father's Day, and like he sent me like the ball because there was a butterfly on the ball, and it was just like it just is becoming this like normal thing to talk about.
Yeah. And that's kind of thing sometimes it's like making it normal, making it okay, giving people permission to talk about our babies I think is an important thing for us to do as lost parents. Give people permission to talk about our kids. So and that heartache, right? I mean, it is uncomfortable for a lot of people to talk about heartache. So,
yes, for sure.
Now, Joy, on the other hand, what are some things that are probably less, you should probably not say to a lost parent, or maybe not the best thing to say? Anything that you would say, stay away from this?
Yeah, well, when I went back to work, it's like this taboo thing. And it was, again, the unacknowledgement of what was going on, to the point that, like, it was like, you're back to normal.
Just normal.
Just get back to normal. And, like, my boss and my, assistant managers, they understood that, and they, like, would ask. And, one of them said, I love her name. Like, the first thing that she said to me was, I love her name when I came back. But the other, the people that are, my workers or whatever, I guess just didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest advice to me, to anybody, especially at work, is just say one thing about what happened. And it doesn't have to be, big or anything, of just, I'm so glad you're back, or, whatever. But it was like, there was absolutely, when I walked out on the floor, it felt like nobody wanted to
interact with you, right?
Yeah. And they just would come to me for the regular things. And I just was like, well, I'm the manager. I'm just going to pick up my bootstraps and figure it out. But that was challenging.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think people don't realize that they do that when there is kind of this tragedy and there's there's an elephant in the room. And so people just avoid, and it makes the person feel like even more of a pariah, I feel like.
Yeah.
They just don't want to talk to you because they're like, I don't know what to say. I'm not going to say the right thing. And then they just avoid you. And then you just feel even more awkward as a lost mom, where you're like sad. And then you're like, and I'm ostracized. Yes. Like there's just so many layers of just like, oh, can this be even worse? So
yeah.
Yes. But a simple acknowledgement is huge. Like it's like, I'm just so sorry for your loss. But even saying her name, or you can say, what was her name? What is her name? And so that you can get to talking about that. It's just, I think, super simple to introduce that. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. And then the cliches of it was God's way, or, all of those kinds of things are just not helpful.
Yeah.
But it's funny how many people do that, though.
Because they don't have anything else to fall back on. And so, yeah. So that's why we talk about these things. So that
Yeah. Well, and I mean, before this, I'm sure I might have done that same thing.
I know I have. And so that's why it's just nice to have a little bit of awareness around some things that are better to say, I think, than others.
Yeah, for sure.
So I am curious about, have there been any things that have been surprising for during the last year and a half that have come up that you were surprised about with grief, or how you've handled it, or something that you were just, because I'll be honest, I was really surprised when the anger took hold, because I was like, oh, okay, there's this part. We don't talk about that much. So yeah, is there anything in particular that you were a little bit surprised about?
That is one thing that I did not feel at the beginning. And it was just sadness, and like, I felt like it was just so unfair, and, those kinds of things. But right when I was getting ready for the memorial and writing my speech, I remember being so angry and talking to my friend about it. I was like, I haven't gotten to this point. I guess this is like the next level of whatever. But I think it was because I had to put it on paper.
Oh.
And it was supposed to be her birthday.
Yeah.
That I was pissed. I remember saying that. I remember being like, I'm just pissed on this.
Yeah.
Because she's not here.
Yeah.
And it was. Anger was a hard one. And I think my biggest thing is, like, I'm never always going to be a happy, like with my children or whatever. It's always going to be this happy and sad. And so my kid went to kindergarten this year, and you think about how she's never going to go to kindergarten. When we have the pictures, I love to bring Lila bear, but it's a bear. It's not her. And so you're always living in this like happy, sad kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is just your reality, and it's going to be for the rest of your life.
Yeah. It's the word "and."
Yes.
You could be both, but it's there. Like
right.
That is a reality that is kind of a bummer, because you're kind of happy-go-lucky before anything like this happens, and you're like, I'm a different person now, and you're different after that.
It is. It's very different. You are a different person, and that's how I started my memorial thing of like, it was the before joy and it's the after joy, and it is. That's what it is, and I think of course, there's positives about it and the person I am and all the things, but I grieve the person I was before.
Yeah. And there's and I think there's we need to grieve that person that was there before, because a lot of times it was a much more carefree, happy-go-lucky type of person, and you're just like, oh, I miss that person, where I didn't have to worry about so many things.
Right.
Yeah. Joy, this has been a really awesome discussion. Like, I feel like I've learned a ton from you. You just said things such a certain way that I'm like, oh, that was so good. And so, and really helped a lot of things click in my brain of like, oh, that's probably why I reacted the way I did. So I thank you for your time today. And also for being so willing to talk about Lila, because this is like, if I can encourage anybody to go listen to her story, please do, because that is I feel like it's a really surprising and a raw story, and a very like super frustrating in a lot of different ways too. But as we close, is there any last advice that you would like to offer those who may be traversing this path? And also maybe a piece of advice to anybody that is supporting somebody that is going through this.
I do think I was very hesitant to reach out to this community, but it has been kind of a lifesaver. I go to a group, and those are some strong, strong women, and it's not the club you want to be in, but it's a club that feels good when you have to be in this club.
Yeah.
And that has been very helpful to reach out to those that have had these similar experiences and know that, I know when I'm listening to your podcast, there's like a little thing on this story that I can relate to, and a little bit of this story I can relate to. And so it just doesn't feel as alone. And then those that are supporting us.
Yes.
I think one of the things that my mom, she didn't know where to go with like Easter or whatever. And she asked, she said, can I buy her,
Oh,
something for Easter? And it was just like, just having those moments of you remember them and that they are part of our family helps tremendously.
yeah.
And so really just the littlest things, you don't have to do this extravagant, whatever, but a picture, when somebody sends me a picture of a butterfly, it warms my heart and it becomes a happy memory of her. And so, that has been, I think, helpful for others, I think, in this journey.
That's perfect. Both pieces of advice. So, so good. Joy, thank you. I can't thank you enough. Seriously, this has been so awesome to talk to you and for sharing Lila with us because yeah, her story needs to be told. So, and I'm so glad you were able to tell it today.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate all that you do for this community.
Yeah.
You're really making a difference.
Oh, we hope so. This is our way of parenting our son, Brandon.
Yeah.
So that's this is why we do it.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you again, Joy.
Thank you.